Well, thousands of firefighters across France and Spain are battling massive wildfires sweeping through both countries since last week. The blazes have triggered one of the continent's biggest evacuation efforts since the Second World War, with around 375,000 people forced from their homes. Now emergency crews are facing what seems an impossible deadline.
It's a race against time. Firefighting crews are working around the clock to battle blazes that continue to rage through France and Spain. They're hoping to make progress in halting the spread of the wildfires before a forecast surge in temperatures this week, which could make fighting the flames even more difficult. In the southwestern French region of Gironde, the fire has already burned an area 4 times the size of Paris. The fires are also threatening the city of Bordeaux. Thousands of firefighters are on the ground, supported by aircraft dropping water and flame retardants. Around a dozen countries have provided planes, helicopters, firefighters, and other assistance, including Germany. Though some fires have stabilized, others continue to burn out of control, scorching tens of thousands of hectares and forcing hundreds of thousands of people to flee. Visiting affected areas, Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez directly blamed global warming for the crisis.
In any case, what is certainly true is that the climate emergency, this sustained and systematic increase in temperatures that we're seeing every year, is exponentially driving up the spread and intensity of the fires we are suffering. And we're seeing increasingly similar patterns in the fires across our entire country.
The fires have left a massive trail of destruction across forests and communities. For many of the hundreds of thousands of evacuated people, there will be no quick return home.
All right, we want to go now to Valencia, Spain, where our correspondent Jan-Philipp Scholz is standing by. Jan-Philipp, what is the situation there right now?
Well, the situation here is still quite tense. The hotspot at the moment is around 30-40 kilometers north of here in the area of Castellón. Like I said, like 30 kilometers north of the city of Valencia, where I'm at the moment. Around 7,000, 8,000 hectares of land have been burned there already. 20,000 people have been evacuated. The area of burnt land is still smaller than what we have seen, for example, in Bordeaux or in the region around Madrid. But what is really quite unusual here is that so many people have been affected in such a short period of time. They have to be evacuated, they have to be confined in some cases. Some local authorities just told us that they were able to use what they call a window of opportunity last night and in the early morning hours, where the temperatures were a little bit cooler, but they still stress that the fires in the region are not controlled. And the bad news is that the weather forecast is not very favorable. There might be another heat wave approaching and some heavy winds as well.
That's true. At the end of the week, temperatures are supposed to go up again. Jan-Philipp, how many people have had to flee at this point, and how are they being accommodated?
Well, here around 20,000 people have been either confined or had to flee. They are usually accommodated in temporary emergency shelters. Some are also staying with their relatives. Of course, they are very worried about what might happen to their homes. But in general, the management by the regional government has more or less worked well. Very different than around 1.5 years ago when I was here, when there were big floods in the region. Many people might remember when the government was completely overwhelmed and even the regional president had to step down. This time it seems that authorities are better prepared for such an emergency.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that. Are people generally satisfied with the way authorities have dealt with this situation so far? I mean, is there a sense, particularly there around Valencia, that authorities learned a lot of lessons from those floods?
Exactly. I think there is the sense of there have been some lessons learned. A lot of volunteers have been helping. As usual in these situations, there's a lot of solidarity. Of course, also very typical in Spain, it has already become a heated political debate. Prime Minister Sanchez was in the region today and he called for a national plan against what he calls a climate emergency. Then the opposition said these are just empty words, as always. So it has already become a political debate, but I have the impression that so far the people are more or less satisfied with the management by the authorities on a regional as well as on a national level.
Yeah, let's hope this political debate smolders a lot longer than these actual fires. DW correspondent Jan-Philipp Scholz in Valencia, Spain tonight. Jan-Philipp, thank you.
Well, our correspondent Tessa Walther is in Bordeaux in France's Bordeaux region and sent us this update.
Right behind me, you can see part of the forest that has burned. We're talking around 42,000 hectares of land that have been caught up in the flames. And now I'm just going to show you one of the homes that couldn't be saved by the firefighters. This is one home, and luckily the people that have been living here were evacuated in due time, so they were not hurt. But when they come back, they will have a hard time recognizing what was once their home. Standing here, I can tell you that it is very difficult to breathe here because there are still lots of ashes in the air. They ache in your lungs, they ache in your eyes, and there's really this smell of fire that has passed not too long ago. The situation in general is remaining complicated. We had new flare-ups in the east of the fire, and this could be contained by the firefighters, luckily, overnight. So they have really given it their all in the last 48 hours because there was a window of opportunity of lower temperatures, where now over 3,000, around 3,000 firefighters are fighting the fires from different angles. We also have 18 airplanes that are now here deployed, coming from the air and trying to contain the fire like this. What is on everybody's mind are the next coming days, because we're going to have rising temperatures of up to 38 degrees, and that will make it easier for the flames to spread. So far, we had no civilian casualties, and despite these new temperatures and a possible increase of the flames, everybody hopes that it will stay this way.